I think a lot of it's going to depend on the broader macroeconomic situation. If we enter into a recession, if we start to see the indicators really turn south, I think they will reconsider it. And we've seen,
Right.
we've seen the administration be sensitive to affordability issues. It's also possible the midterms, if the president doesn't perform well, that could lead to a pivot. I'm just not convinced they view tariffs as a problem.
Okay, but that's where I wanted to go, because I'm reading there's a definitive one volume, folks, on Ready, President McKinley. Okay, so Ryan, forget about the drama of 1901 or whatever it was. McKinley started adjusting his tariff certitude based on congressional elections. Do you think these guys will do a McKinley and adjust?
So I think a lot of it's going to depend when these Section 301 tariffs land. They're a very different kind of tariff instrument than what we've seen before. They're largely insulated from court challenge. So, and we've also kept Section 301 tariffs in place against China for almost 8 years. So I don't think they face a lot of pressure in terms of the actual instruments in terms of limiting their use, but it's going to be those broader indicators. And look, at some point we've seen the president pull back. I think there's certainly a chance of it.
So how much influence does President Trump have on these new tariffs, these Section 301 tariffs? Can he ratchet them up, down? How does that work?
Yeah, so the way it operates, excuse me, there's a process that has to be followed. They have to solicit notice and comment, have a hearing. But once the duties are in place, they really have the ability to ratchet the tariffs up and down with a lot of flexibility. And the courts have faced challenges or have heard challenges in terms of whether the president has the authority to do that, and they haven't stepped in to stop it. So the bottom line is we could be back to a situation like we had in early 2025 once the 301 tariffs are in place.
So what do we know about these tariffs to date, Ryan? I mean, we've been at this now for, more than a year here. What's your takeaway? Are they effective? Are they having an impact? What are you seeing?
So, I think the one big success the administration can point to is that when the original tariffs were put in place last year, that did lead our trading partners to the table, and they made a series of investment commitments into the U.S. And that's kind of at the core of what they're trying to do. They're trying to reshore manufacturing. Now, the question is, can they actually implement that? Are we actually going to see the investments get made on the ground? If that happens, I think they're going to find success. But the story hasn't concluded at this point. We just don't know.
So, I mean, again, we've had, you're right, you refer us back to a lot of those big investment announcements from a lot of companies, a lot of countries. I guess that suggests that if you're the administration, that in fact these tariffs, to some extent, are in fact working.
I mean, they're certainly getting our trading partners to the table. I think we can have a bigger debate about kind of where we're going to be in the next decade or two with our trading partners after this kind of policy has been in place.
Right.
But in terms of getting immediate gains on investment commitments, we're seeing that.
Okay, what's our blended tariff rate right now? When you got Canada, Mexico with all sorts of waivers, carve-outs, whatever, what's the Ryan Majerus blended rate right now we're doing?
Yeah, I think that's a key point, because to give one example, we had a Section 301 release last week on Brazil, and they applied 25% tariffs across the board on Brazil, which is kind of splitting the baby between the 10% baseline IEEPA tariff and 122 tariff and a 40% tariff they put on Brazil. So they put in place 25%, which is still a significant tariff, but they carved out about half the goods from applicability. So the bottom line is they're quietly pulling stuff out of the tariff.
Okay, but so like Budget Lab at Yale or Ryan Majerus at King and Spalding, I mean, what are we rocking, a 10% blended tariff rate now?
I think that's right, anywhere from 10 to 15%. So it's still significant. Okay. It's quite a bit higher than what we've had.
Here's the number one question, given our debt and deficit. Are we addicted to this cash flow?
I actually don't think the revenue is as significant of a piece. I mean, I think it was definitely one of the 3 or 4 key parts of what they were leaning on. But for example, with the refunds for IEEPA, there are some court challenges on certain aspects of the entries, but most of them are getting refunded. So I actually think that's becoming less prominent in the focus of the administration. But more directly to your question, we're not dependent on this revenue at all.
Okay.
I mean, it is so dwarfed.
Okay, well, I got to get down brass tacks. You can bill me King and Spalding by the hour. Okay, Ryan, as simple as I can, does Michael Barr get a tariff rebate on his Detroit Tigers merch that he bought that was a total gouge because of a Chinese tariff? How are these rebates going to work?
That's a difficult question to answer. I hope you can. The way the system operates is you need to make sure you provide all the relevant information to customs. It's basically in a spreadsheet. As long as you give them the information they need and it's eligible in the program, you'll get a refund. But that's still a lot of qualifiers before you get there.
For what? Like by the time Scooball leaves the Tigers? Or...
I hope not.
This is a mess. Okay, we did these tariffs, and I don't know the details, right? We're in awe of your abilities. But the bottom line is now Paul Sweeney's going to get a rebate. Colgate-Palmolive's going to get a rebate. Amazon and Walmart are going to get a rebate. Does the only one who makes money here is King and Spalding?
I think the story's unwritten in terms of like who is going to formally get the refunds. I can tell you that the big companies like Amazon, Walmart, even the freight carriers like UPS and FedEx, they're under a lot of pressure to pass on those refunds to consumers, and there have been lawsuits filed, including class actions.